As a rule, when a murder occurs, the first thing we receive information about is the discovery of the victim's body. From that moment, the police begin their investigation and try to determine what happened and who committed the crime. But not this time. In this case, the typical pattern was broken when the victim discovered her offender long before he went on to commit the crime. This story happened quite recently. In early May 2022, in the city of Playon, in Norte de Santander department, one of the 32 departments of Colombia. In this city lived 16-year-old Karina Blanco Duran. The girl was the oldest of 3 children in a poor family, much like many others in the region. However, this did not affect Karina's character or her dreams. She was in the 11th grade and was eagerly looking forward to graduation. Her relatives and friends described Karina as disciplined and determined, yet at the same time very cheerful, sociable, and a young girl full of hope. However, like most teenagers, she was also full of doubts. She expressed her thoughts in a letter she wrote 2 weeks earlier as a school assignment. The girl wrote that, like everyone else, she had goals she wanted to achieve, but at that moment she was focused on being happy, studying, and helping her mother, whom she described as a wonderful, strong, and persistent woman who had had a huge influence on her life. The following year, Karina planned to start university, where she wanted to study psychology or philosophy. In doing so, she hoped to fulfill her dreams, the most important of which was to buy her mother a house. At the same time, Karina admitted to the fears and doubts that troubled her. She wrote that she was afraid of growing up and facing the big world on her own. Several times she had wished she could turn back time so she could play with dolls again, something she had not been able to do in childhood because she had to grow up very early while helping her parents. In the final sentence, almost prophetically, Karina explained what would happen to her just 2 weeks later. She wrote that she was afraid of human cruelty, and she was not mistaken, because the very thing she feared so deeply eventually destroyed her dreams. On May 3rd, 2022, Karina woke up very early, as usual. She lived in the small village of La Vega in the municipality of Cáchira. The village was quite far from her school, so every day Karina had to walk for at least half an hour along several dirt roads to reach the bus stop, from which a bus would take her to school. That morning went as usual. The schoolgirl woke up, had breakfast, and after saying goodbye to her family, left home at 5:30 a.m. But just a few minutes after Karina had left, her father began receiving messages from his daughter. This was unusual. Karina wrote to him that while she was walking along the dirt roads, she noticed that someone was following her. It was a man moving very close to her. Whenever the girl quickened her pace, the stranger did the same. If she tried to turn onto another path, he followed her. Naturally, she didn't feel comfortable and sensed danger. She dared to take a photo of the man without him noticing and sent it to her father so he would know who was following her. Karina's father, Cesar Blanco, was very frightened for his daughter and ran out of the house to walk the same route to the bus stop that she had taken. But he could not find her anywhere. The man assumed the danger had passed, and Karina calmly boarded the bus. Unfortunately, this was not the case. Her parents were later informed by the school that Karina had not shown up for classes that day. Karina's parents reported her disappearance to the police. Since it was a tiny village, most people knew each other, and fairly quickly all the local residents learned about what had happened. The family also shared the photograph of the stranger who had followed her that morning. Within just a few hours, a man who worked on a local farm spoke up about another farm employee who looked very similar to the man in the photo. Despite the blurry image, he thought he recognized him. Moreover, that very day, this employee had been late for work. Armed with this information, several villagers and Karina's relatives went to the farm where the men worked and demanded answers from the person Karina had likely photographed. He turned out to be 55-year-old Alexander Carrillo, originally from Venezuela. The man had arrived in the town 4 months earlier and was staying with a relative. Alexander had taken a job at the farm where he was found. The villagers were furious about the disappearance of the schoolgirl and were very aggressive. In the end, he confessed that he had assaulted Karina, killed her, and thrown her body into the Cáchira River. It's not hard to imagine that the villagers, especially Karina's relatives, wanted to take justice into their own hands after such a confession. But the police arrived in time. Officers arrested the suspect, thereby saving him from the enraged crowd. The police took Alexander Carrillo to the station and began questioning him. He repeated what he had already told the villagers. He confessed that he had killed the schoolgirl and revealed where he had thrown her body. After committing the crime, he had cleaned himself up, changed out of his blood-stained clothes, and gone to work. The man sincerely believed that he would never be caught, unaware that the photograph taken by the victim would expose him. While the interrogation was taking place, villagers gathered near the station. They were furious and wanted to take justice into their own hands. Fearing for Carrillo's life, the police decided to move him to another location. They led the suspect out of the station and tried to put him into a car, but the crowd began to act. They pulled Carrillo out of the vehicle and attacked him. There were too many people for the police to intervene. The crowd beat the rapist with sticks and stones until someone stabbed him, delivering a fatal blow. Even after that, the people did not disperse and prevented the police from approaching until they were certain the man was dead. Karina's body was found on the riverbank, exactly at the spot her attacker had indicated. Her bag was lying nearby. She was partially unclothed, and the autopsy confirmed that she had been assaulted. She died from 2 penetrating wounds to the chest and neck. According to the police, Alexander Carrillo had been watching Karina for several days, encountering her each morning as she walked to school while he went to work. This version is supported by the fact that, a few days before the attack, Karina had told her school friends that a stranger had been watching her, which made her feel very uneasy. The police stated that the investigation is not over. They will examine the actions of the local officers who allowed the man to be lynched, and they also want to determine who initiated the attack and who delivered the fatal blow. According to local media reports, it was a relative of Karina, but their name has not been released. Pain and outrage gripped the town. At Karina's school, an event was organized not only to honor the memory of the student, but also to protest against the killings of women. Students and teachers wrote an open letter expressing their outrage at the situation. She was not drunk. She was not wearing provocative clothes. She was not in a bar. She was, like every other weekday, walking to school in rubber boots because she lived on a farm, and she had to endure the same hardships as many boys and girls in the country to get an education. She was afraid that someone was following her. She was alone, terribly scared. Her dreams, her desires, her life were taken from her. After Karina's voice was silenced, only the voices of those of us who demand a safer environment and normal families remain, where children are taught from an early age not to hit, not to assault, and not to kill each other. Karina's killer did not think of her as a person with her own life, her own dreams, and her loving family, and the villagers decided to repay him in kind. For many, lynching is unacceptable and has no place in a civilized society. But for many others, it simply reflects the fact that people no longer trust the justice system. They are frustrated by the thriving impunity and the certainty that a criminal will never face the most serious punishment. In their view, the police do not do their job, so they decided to take matters into their own hands to try to change the situation. It is sad to see girls go to school and never return home, falling victim to murder. But in this case, it was Karina who became the person to expose the criminal. She did not act carelessly. She immediately sensed the danger posed by the persistent stranger. By secretly taking his photo and sending it to her father, she allowed him to be caught before he could attack another innocent girl. Unfortunately for Karina herself, it was already too late. But without that photo, the police might have spent days, months, or even years and still not found the killer.